Okay, in this video, I'm going to do the review for Quiz 1, Trigonometric Identities. And for this quiz, you'll need the reciprocal identities listed here, the quotient identities listed, and then the Pythagorean identities that are listed here. So let's go ahead and get started with the review pages. The retake quiz is going to look similar to the format, or the same as the format as these. In fact, these were some of the original quizzes here. So it says simplify the expression. Your answer should be a number or a one trig function. So if I do this first one here, cosine. So ways to simplify here is get everything in terms of sine and cosine. So this is already in terms of cosine. So cosine x, and then times so I'm going to put this in parentheses instead of looking for the dot there. So cosine x, and then cosecant is 1 over sine. But then I know that cosine over sine is equal to tangent. So this is going to be tangent x. And then the second problem, cotangent, is put these both in terms of sine and cosine. So the top one, the numerator there. So let me make a fraction bar, and then another one, because I'm going to take cotangent and change it to cosine over sine. And then cosecant is the same as 1 over sine. And then that's equal to, they're going to take this complex fraction and then multiply by the reciprocal. So the numerator, he stays the same, cosine over sine. And then the denominator multiplied by the reciprocal is sine x over 1. So the sine x cancels here. So these two are going to cancel, and I end up with cosine x. So these two right here, these two are going to cancel here. So I end up with cosine x. Next one, the next one, we're going to get everything in terms of sine and cosine again. So let's insert an equation here. So cotangent is, excuse me, cotangent is cosine over sine. Let me go ahead and put parentheses around this here. And secant is the same as 1 over cosine. And sine x, I'm going to leave alone. Just to emphasize that sine is in the numerator here. So sine x over 1. And then looking through this equation, the cosines are going to cancel, the sines are going to cancel, and I end up with just 1. So this is equal to 1. Okay, so let me get this pointer here. And I don't know why this happens, but when I type in the equation editor, sometimes you don't see this fraction bar. It goes away, but go ahead and cancel these here. So I cancel the sine x, cancel the cosine x, and I end up with 1 there. So this next one, because it has squared terms in it, you want to look back at your identity here, and then you find the one with cosecant and cotangent in it. So cosecant minus cotangent is equal to 1. So we're using this identity right here. So let me go insert an equation here. So the first two terms subtracted from each other, that equals 1. And then I have plus tangent squared. So since I still have squared terms, then once again, I'm going to look back here at my identities and look for the one with the Pythagorean identities and then look for the one with tangent squared. Here it is. 1 plus tangent squared is equal to secant squared. So right here, let me get back onto the equation. This is going to be secant squared. Okay, so there's the first 4 problems. This one, I have to multiply everything together using the distributive property. So now I have, when I do the distributive property, I have 1 minus sine x plus sine x minus sine squared x. And then you have 1 minus sine squared x and then back here the Pythagorean identities. Let me close this for a second and look for the Pythagorean identity with sine squared in it. 1 minus sine squared is cosine squared. So this is equal to cosine squared. All right, and then this one here, sine squared times cosecant squared. I'm going to change this in terms of sine. And now I have sine squared and then cosecant squared is 1 over sine squared. Type correctly here, sine squared. And then minus sine squared. And then these sine squared cancels. So I have 1 minus sine squared. And that's just equal to cosine squared. Go back at your Pythagorean identities again. And this is going to equal cosine squared. Okay, there's the first 6 problems, the first page there. Like I said, the retake is going to look like this here. All right, number 7, we have sine squared over cosine squared plus cosine squared. So you need to get a common denominator there. So getting a common denominator would be, the common denominator would be cosine x. So in the numerator, you have sine squared. And then plus, in order to get this with a denominator cosine, I have to multiply by cosine. So this makes that cosine squared x over cosine x. And looking at your Pythagorean identities, this sine squared plus cosine squared is just 1. So now 1 over cosine squared. And 1 over cosine squared is secant. All right. And once again, that fraction bar kind of disappeared here. All right, and then 1 plus tangent squared and 1 plus cotangent squared. So back on our Pythagorean identities again, 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared. So this is secant squared. And 1 plus cotangent squared is cosecant squared. So I have secant squared over cosecant squared. So this is secant squared over cosecant squared. All right, and then if I turn both of those in terms of sine and cosine, then I'm going to use the reciprocal function. So let me do this, and then another fraction bar in the numerator and denominator. So secant is 1 over cosine squared. Whoops. X and then in the exponent. And then cosecant is 1 over, cosecant squared is 1 over sine squared. Let me back this up a little bit. All right. And then the next step would be to multiply by the reciprocal here. So I'm going to make parentheses. 1 over cosine squared. Times sine squared over 1. And sine squared over cosine squared is tangent squared. So this is equal to tangent squared. And then verify the following equations. So here I'm going to take the more complicated side and see if it's equal to tangent x. So cosine x, leave alone. And then I'm going to multiply that times the reciprocal of secant is 1 over cosine. And since I noticed this cotangent is in the denominator, I'm going to leave that alone. I could change it to cosine over sine and I get the same result, but I notice that this is going to cancel here, so let's have 1 over cotangent equals tangent, and then tangent equal tangent. And then doing this problem, if I just look up here, I see that 1 plus tangent is secant. So this is secant. Secant squared x. And then secant squared minus 1 this would be tangent squared. Does that equal cosecant squared x? So I know that secant is 1 over cosine. And I have 1 over cosine squared x. And then on the bottom, in the denominator, tangent is tangent squared sine squared over cosine squared. Let me fix this here. Sine squared over cosine squared. All right, and that equals, let me put this in parentheses here. Leave the denominator alone. and then multiplied by sine squared, or cosine squared should be going in the numerator, and sine squared in the denominator. All right, and these are going to cancel. So I have 1 over sine squared. And that equals cosecant squared. I'm going to stop the video here and do the second review in a second video. So it's not so lengthy. When you download a lengthy video, then it's going to take a long time to download. So the shorter the video, the better download you're going to get. Also, I want to try to post this on the YouTube channel, so it will close caption it for me. So if you need closed captioning, you're going to have to look on the YouTube channel, and hopefully if I enable it that you can see it. Montgomery County in the past has blocked the YouTube channel for students. So I'm going to post it on the YouTube channel, put the YouTube link, and then go to student view and see if you can view it. I think I need to click on the YouTube channel. This is approved for viewing by Montgomery County students. So I'm going to stop right here because the next page is the second review. So I'm going to stop right here and then just post this video on YouTube and see how that works.